Hello there, Simon Dowling here, and welcome back to Teaming with Possibility. This is the podcast where we explore what does it take to create awesome teams, the kind of teams that do great work, but also are the kinds of teams which are just a great place to be, a great team to be part of. It's fun, I'm growing, I'm developing, I am doing my best work. What does that look like from a leadership perspective, from an experience perspective, and how do we make it so? This is episode 5 and it is the beginning of 2023. What an exciting time to be standing here and looking ahead at what this year offers up. The possibilities, rich with potential. Always a really exciting question to be reflecting on at the beginning of this year. I hope you, like me, are coming back into this year feeling energized, refreshed, and ready to rock and roll. Speaking of which, I think this is a great time of the year for any team, any group, anyone really, to be thinking about a really important question, and that is, what do we want this year to be? And in fact, I like to use the expression, how does a team conjure up its future, conjure up its destiny at the beginning of a year? And that word conjure has a connotation of almost wizardry about it. It's like we're casting a spell on ourselves, and I kind of like that energy. I think that's a really cool idea. So one of my favorite things for any team to do is to get together at the beginning of a year at any period and ask itself, what do we wish for ourselves as we head into this next 12 months? As we set sail, let's cast a course for ourselves. And one of my favorite ways to do that is through the act of a time machine activity, which I'm going to share with you in this episode. I'm going to talk a little bit about what that might look like, and hopefully this is something you might do together with your own team. Now, I'm really conscious that at this time of the year, if you're listening to it, in fact, early in 2023, it might be the time of year where we've all just created New Year's resolutions for ourselves and the like. And I don't know that this is quite the same as that. I think the difference here is that we're not just saying, here's what I want for 2023, but we're stepping we're moving one step beyond that. And when we conjure up a vision for ourselves, what we're literally doing is painting our future success and committing to it energetically and strategically, aligning ourselves as a group towards what that success looks like. This is really important as you head into the new year, because it's really easy. I mean, I don't know what your team might look like, but for people to start returning from leave, what typically might happen is that not everyone comes back from leave on the same day. And so you get this kind of, we're beginning the year in dribs and drabs. And then by a certain date, everyone's back on deck. But by that point, we're kind of just back in flow. We're back in motion. And so what have we stepped into? What is 2023? The worst case scenario is it's the beginning of just a new conveyor belt that we're on, a new 12-month episode, which we just move through mechanically, much in the same way that we just left off. One of the most critical things I think a leader can do, and by leader I don't just mean someone in a position of leadership, I mean anyone who seeks to make a positive impact on the group that they're part of. The most important thing a leader can do is to reset and to re-energize that team at the beginning of the year. That's true at the beginning of a project. It's true at the beginning of as you lean into any new endeavor, any new initiative. But it's particularly true as we head into and set sail into this new year. So what does it mean to conjure up your shared vision, your what you might even call collective mission as a team? What do we want for ourselves? What is it that we wish for ourselves? So late last year, I sent out a blog where I talked about this idea that a team might well come together at the end of a year and ask itself, what's one thing we wish for ourselves as a team in 2023 or the year ahead? In other words, to finish the year by casting that wish. So people in a team might say, well, the one thing I wish for ourselves is a greater sense of connectedness, or more joy, or more fun, or less friction, or more time to think blue sky, or might wish for ourselves new and interesting customers to work with. So in other words, these are much more broad brushed ways of talking about the future we see for ourselves. That's that idea of, maybe the picture in your mind is a group of people in a team sitting together and rubbing the lamp, and out pops the genie and says, what's your one wish for 2023 and I shall make it true. It's really cool to have that conversation as a team. But this idea of now conjuring up our shared picture of success requires us to get a little bit more detailed than that, to pull out our fine-tipped paintbrush and to get to work on painting what that looks like. And the way I like to do that is to invite a group to pick their favourite time machine, whatever time machine that might be, whether it's the TARDIS if you're a Doctor Who fan, or the DeLorean if you're a Back to the Future fan, or the phone booth from Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Adventure. Whatever your preferred time machine might be. And to set the coordinates together. So let's set the coordinates to what? Is it the 20th of December 2023? Pick a date. Is it 12 months from now? Is it before we close up shop at the end of the year? A strange thing to think about at the beginning of the year is closing up shop for Christmas at the end of the year. But let's go there, right? Set the coordinates, flick the switch, and let's visit that day together. And now let's step out of that time machine and actually taking the time to create the visual image in people's heads of doing this is really important. And as we step out of that time machine, let's take our time to describe what it is that we see that suggests, wow, this has been a great year. This has been a great year. And you'll notice that what we're now doing is talking as if we are observing it right now in front of us. Wow, this is what I see. But we're talking about it with a sense of this captures the 12 months that has just passed. So it's what we've achieved, described in present terms at the end of the year. So that, of course, if you don't do that, you're kind of letting the whole time machine activity down. So this is where people then are able to say, well, I'm seeing that we have 2 of the existing empty roles in the team. They are filled, and they are filled with people who are really creative, really energized, and love the work that we're doing. And I'm seeing the rest of us energized and excited and enthused by the effect of that, those new people in the team. What else are you seeing that suggests this 12 months has been really successful? We've got a new single way of measuring our customer feedback. We're capturing that feedback. We are getting together on a weekly basis and talking about what we've learned from that feedback. Wow, that's really exciting. That tool's really easy for us all to access online, and each of us in the team is using it because we're really excited by the value that it delivers for us. Now you can see what we're doing. We're talking about things in present terms. We've just closed the third of our major account sales for the year. A $250,000 sale has been closed, and that's one of 3 that we've closed across the course of that 3 years. We've just hit our target of whatever the revenue is. So you can hear there's different threads around what's going on. We've just achieved an engagement score higher than anyone else, any other team in the business, of 87%. 87? Don't know where I came up with that figure. Let's call it 95%. So as you do this, you're really inviting people to step into this with what what I just mentioned, this idea of your fine tipped paintbrush, because you're describing things in a level of detail. And your team, you could do this in a number of ways. It could be as simple as getting a whole bunch of post-it notes, or maybe just flip charts and a whiteboard on the wall where people can write these things up, working in little groups together to paint this picture together. It might be, if you're doing it virtually, you're doing it through some sort of shared, way of painting that visual together, whether it's a Miro board, which is a great way to kind of create post-it notes and drawings, or whether it's a shared whiteboard where people are literally pulling out their virtual whiteboard markers and drawing stuff. The key here is not to make this kind of a strategic planning session in its energy, which might be about PowerPoints with bullet point slides on it, PowerPoint slides with bullet points on it, but actually thinking much more around, the picture in our minds and in our hearts. And when you do this well, you're doing it well, because the energy takes off in the group as they inspire each other with this picture of possibility. Of course, the one thing to look out for is that, as different people engage in this kind of conversation, and as they look around them, they're going to be noticing different things. There'll be some who are noticing the financial performance, or the sales, or the results, or the profit, or the share price. There'll be those that are talking about the culture, the lived experience of working in the team. What's that like? There'll be some who'll be talking about the relationships that we're building with people across the business or outside the business. There'll be those that talk about the difference that we're making in people's lives in terms of our customers, the market, the problems that we're solving for people. And here's the thing, all of those are important, which means you want to be conscious of how do we make sure this really is a multi-dimensional picture, and we create space for all of those elements. And I often think the way to do that is to think about what are those dimensions that we want to capture. There's 4 dimensions that I will keep coming back to. In fact, there's a 5th, which I'll share in a sec as well. The 4 dimensions that I keep coming back to are performance. In other words, how are we going in terms of results, financial performance, other metrics that really represent we're hitting our goals. Then there is culture. And the culture is, what is the environment that we're creating? What is the lived experience of working here that means we're enabling us to achieve those results? There's no point talking about we want to be able to achieve, $1 million in revenue if we don't have a culture that rewards experimentation, a culture where everyone is aligned around and bought into that vision of success, a culture where we are celebrating progress and the key milestones when we hit them, a culture where people's voice is heard, and where there is a culture of courage and boldness to try stuff out, to push boundaries, to experiment, to innovate, where we put the customer at the center of everything we do. So there's a conversation about performance and a conversation about culture. The third category that I think, or dimension, perhaps is a better word here, that's important to bring in is impact. So what's the difference that we're making through those sales and by delivering results and selling those products or those services or whatever it might be? What's the difference that we're making, the impact? What are our customers noticing? What are they experiencing? What are the problems that we're solving? What's the difference that we're making in the industry? The pain points that we're eliminating, the value that we're generating. So performance, culture, impact. And then the 4th, this one I'll sort of bring out depending on the team that I'm working with. But the 4th is relationships. And that goes to the question of what are our broader relationships with perhaps stakeholders across the business, or across if we're part of a global group, across that global group, or within our community, or with other key stakeholders. What are we noticing, and what's changing in terms of the kinds of relationships we're building? That might even then dovetail into the broader question of reputation. So what's the reputation that we're building for ourselves? What are we becoming known for? What are we famous for? How are people describing us? If there was a story done in the financial review this weekend about our company. What are we becoming known for as a business reputationally? And that might pick up on some of those threads of performance. We're known for performing, we're known for our culture, we're known for the impact we're having. But what else? Is it the trust that we're building with the community, and so on? So there are your 4 dimensions. And what you want to do is make sure that as a team works together to conjure up that picture of success, they're conjuring it up across all of those dimensions, or at least the ones that you think, yeah, they're really going to be important for us to have in mind when we talk about success. And once you've done that, to then perhaps spend some time distilling down what are the most important threads, like which are the ones that we want to say, let's choose those 1 or 2 threads or themes within each of those dimensions. So what is the essence of success when it comes to performance? What is our one kind of light on the hill in terms of the kind of culture we're looking to achieve in 2023, or that we see as success? Still in our time machine, or still in that future state, talking about the thing. Let's choose something, because here's the danger of an activity like this, is that as we have this kind of inspired conversation, there's so many threads and so many kind of waves and pulses of energy in your team that it lacks specificity, it lacks clarity. And so what people walk away from this with is this sense of positive energy, but not clarity. So you do want to pick the things that you'd say, let's dial those in as our future coordinates. That then sets you up to come back to the present day. Get back in the time machine. Let's set back those coordinates to the present day. And now let's talk about, wow, how are we feeling about that picture we just created? What does that look like? How much do we want it? And now, what do we need to be? Who do we need to be? What do we need to be doing? What do we need to focus on now in order to get us there? And this is clearly going to get you into a space that might resemble your strategy kind of conversation. But again, starting with this broader picture in mind enables you to say, well, what does this require in terms of how we set ourselves up for performance? How do we build that culture right now? And let's focus first on what we can be doing in the coming 30, 60, and 90 days. Keep it immediate, because what really matters now is that our energy today is aligned towards what we want in that future state. Because your challenge now as a team, your challenge as a leader, is to keep that future picture, that future state that you've just conjured up, to keep it present in people's minds, to kind of maintain its energy for the team around that's what we are heading towards. It's not like, oh, it'd be nice if we got there. Wouldn't that be awesome if we managed to achieve that over and above all of our other goals? No. That's the picture that we just said we want to create for ourselves. So how do we now get there? And how do we keep it front of mind? How do we keep it energetically present? Does that mean now as a team, when we get together every week or every fortnight, we revisit that picture and talk about let's remember what we're heading towards in terms of our collective vision, our collective mission. What are we shooting towards? Maybe let's as a team talk about, hey, let's celebrate where we've seen ourselves making progress towards that. Where have we seen some success? Where are we seeing flashes of that happening? And the more we talk about it and celebrate it, the more real it feels, not just front of mind, but front of heart. The more it now starts to become the reality, as opposed to just some great workshop we had back in January as the year started and we came in with fresh hearts, fresh minds. So what are we doing today, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, that will build us towards that, and keep refreshing that conversation over and over throughout the year? It's a bit of a rinse and repeat, but continually aligning ourselves and reconjuring that image for ourselves around what we're shooting for. What a great thing to gift for your team at the beginning of a year. And I don't know about you, as I step into a year, my my desire is to hold tight to a clear picture of how this year will be different from the year we just had. To hold that picture as a clear intention. And I think of that at an individual level, but in a team, you have that possibility to hold that picture for each other. Maybe you draw it. Maybe you put up photos that represent it. Maybe you then talk about, I was working with a team last week who said, well, in fact, there's so much possibility in what we've just conjured up for ourselves. Let's also talk now about what are we going to do to celebrate when we hit that? What's the massive celebration, the party that will represent, woohoo, we did it. Good on us. What will we do? Is it that we'll go away for a night as a team and go on an offsite and have a heap of fun? Is it that we'll hire a boat and go down the river? Is it that we'll just have a meal together at a great restaurant that we've always wanted to eat at? Whatever it is, the key is to say, I am again injecting this with the energy of something that we really not just want, but we're picturing in our minds the experience of celebrating its success. And then again, as leadership goes, it's your job to keep that future vision present every day. Whoa, how exciting is that? So what do you reckon? You ready to start conjuring up your shared picture of what you're shooting for in 2023? There's no time like the present. Get the team together, something really cool to do over a shared meal. All, having perhaps breakfast together, coffees together, eating cake together, having lunch together, whatever it might be. Early drinks on a Friday. Whatever's going to work for you in the context of your team. And there is one final element, I think, in this whole activity, which you might think, actually, this would be a nice extra place to go with my team on this, which is before you go back to the present day in your time machine. So we've gone forward to whatever it might be, 20 December 2023. We've described that future state. We've come back to the present maybe and talked about what it feels like to paint that picture. Now let's go forwards again, but this time 3 years or maybe 5 years, and actually have a conversation around what is that bigger picture future look like? In other words, where does this take us towards? What do we see that 12 months journey actually creating and shifting in terms of a legacy? What are we all leaving behind? And what I sometimes add into that is, let's imagine it's 3 years from now and all of us is hanging up our stockings pre-Christmas, but we are closing up our desk for maybe the last time. Maybe at that point, some of us are shifting roles, shifting jobs. Just imagine that for a moment. But at that point, what are we leaving behind for the team that comes next, the team that picks up from us? And that's the legacy question. Reminds me a lot of that notion in the All Blacks, the New Zealand rugby team, are famous for, the notion or the principle of leave the jersey in a better place. And this idea that 3 years from now, 5 years from now, we as a team are leaving something behind for the next generation. And what is that? And we could again think of that through the lens of performance, culture, impact, relationships, but all of that sits under this broader fifth heading, which is legacy. That might be a nice additional piece to play in or layer in as you talk about what you want for yourselves for 2023 and now how it fits into that longer term journey that we're all on together. I would love to hear from you. What do you like to do to cast that vision together as a team? Have you tried this idea of the time machine and conjuring up that future state by describing it as if you're there now? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What does it shift energetically for your team? What does it mean to keep it alive? You can send me any thoughts, reflections, feedback, and even better, questions to podcast@simondowling.com.au, podcast@simondowling.com.au. You might even like to send me some thoughts about what you'd like me to reflect on in future episodes of Teaming with Possibility as we set sail to 2023. Thank you so much for joining me. I am really excited about the year that lies ahead. I've got a whole bunch of interesting themes and questions lined up with maybe they're things that I'd like to riff about. Some people that I want to co-riff with in 2023. In other words, to not interview them as such, but to put a question on the table and riff together here on this podcast. So lots in store. Can't wait to play. I shall see you next time. Bye for now.